But first, Reserve Bank Governor Phil Lowe told a conference today that his mission was to get inflation back under 3% without driving the economy into a recession. The Reserve Bank, unlike the federal government, has only one economic lever at its disposal, and that's lifting or cutting the official cash rate. So the bank would, the governor said today, do what is necessary with rates because, he said, it's in Australia's interest that we get on top of inflation, and we do so before too long, as high inflation, he said, is corrosive and damages our economy.
It erodes the value of money and people's savings. It puts pressure on household budgets, and it makes life harder for businesses, and it distorts investment. Inflation makes us all poorer, and it hurts people on low incomes the most.
Meanwhile, as home buyers with a typical mortgage try and find another $20,000 a year in after-tax income just to keep a roof over their heads, the government is trying to say that the pain is all the Reserve Bank's fault. In the words of the Treasurer Jim Chalmers, there are a lot of Australians who'll find this decision difficult to understand and difficult to cop. A line that the Treasurer has been trotting out pretty regularly, in fact, as rates keep going up on his watch, and he desperately hopes to sheet home the blame to others.
Oh, very difficult news, Kieran. I think this is the Christmas present that no Australian homeowner wanted. This is another difficult day for Australians who are already under the pump. Can I say to you again today, these are difficult times. I think it will still get more difficult before it gets better. People will find today's news really difficult, I think. It will be a tough day for a lot of homeowners.
It looks like tea and sympathy from the teenager. Now, the Reserve Bank Governor has made a mistake. It isn't that he's raising interest rates. His mistake was the ill-advised promise back in the depths of the pandemic, when interest rates then were virtually zero, that they would stay on hold until at least next year. Arguably, this gave homebuyers false comfort to borrow perhaps more than they should. But Phil Lowe's not wrong to be raising rates now to try and crush inflation out of the system. The problem here isn't Lowe and the bank. It's that they have only one lever to use, monetary policy lever, and that's rates. And it's how the government, in fact, is working against them with all their fiscal levers. That's the problem. Monetary policy, the Reserve Bank; fiscal policy, the federal government. And this has been the big problem since the Albanese government was elected. It's done things, put in place policies and spent billions that's worked against what the bank's been doing over on the other side of Sydney to try and curb inflation. What's more is that the government is now trying to blame everyone else for the price rises and rate hikes that it could and should do more to stop. If you believe Albanese government ministers, higher home repayments are the Reserve Bank's fault, low wages are the Morrison government's fault, and high power, well, that's the fault of Vladimir Putin. The fact that the government is blaming everyone but itself shows that voters, well, they're starting to blame the government, and the government knows it. Now, I know it too. The panic I can see in the Treasurer's messaging yesterday and again today in the media tells me they have polling that says people are blaming Labor for the pain they're in, as they should. It was the Albanese government that barracked for the Fair Work decision last week that put up basic award wages by nearly 9% and all award wages by nearly 6%. It was the Albanese government that barracked for and funded a 15% pay rise for nursing home workers, none of whom are actually employed by the Commonwealth, with now talk of a 25% hike for unionised childcare workers too, again, not employed by taxpayers. It's the Albanese government that's forcing productivity with the sapping, union-busting industrial relations changes through the parliament. It's the Albanese government with its emissions obsession forcing cheap power out of our grid that's sending power prices through the roof, even though it promised nearly 100 times during last year's campaign to cut your power bill by $275 a year. It's the government generally with its taxes and red tape, limiting of new construction, that's putting rents through the roof. And it's the Albanese government's big spending budget that's just increased the dole by $40 a fortnight At the same time, we've got businesses saying they can't find people to work. That's making inflation worse. Yet while millions of Australians are now feeling the squeeze at the supermarket, of course, paying their power bills, watching the mortgage drain from their bank accounts, it seems all the Prime Minister's able to do is talk about his Indigenous voice to the Parliament. And the voters are picking this up. Pollsters tell me his obsession with the voice and not the cost of living pain they're feeling across the board is only making them angrier. Now, that's why the government's now in serious trouble. That's why you're seeing all this language from ministers today and the Treasurer. It's why they're all playing the blame game for all it's worth. And it's why there's genuine concern today amongst economists and inside the business community that we've got some rocky times ahead as we try and get inflation down. While worryingly today, I'll go through those growth numbers in a moment, doing everything we can as a country to avoid a recession.